In this video, we are going to go over circumference and area. For circumference, the formula is 2 pi r. So I would take 2 pi and plug in 3. When you write your solution, there are two ways you can write it. You can write it as 6 pi with the centimeters, because 2 times 3 is 6. Or you could enter it in as 6 second. Oh, let's see, where's pi on this one? Oh, there it is, no second. 6 pi, enter. 18.8 centimeters. So these will be the two solutions for the circumference. On number 11, 2 pi, I plug in 11. That would be 22 pi kilometers. 22 pi, enter, is 69.1 kilometers. Example 3, I have a diameter. I only want to use a radius when I plug it in. So I'll plug in a 5, which will make 10 pi. Hey, look what happens, that's just the diameter. Then when I write it without the pi, my decimal form will be 31.4. Find my radius, which would be 2. 2 times 2 is 4 pi inches. 4 pi as a decimal is 12.6 when I round it to the nearest hundredth, or nearest tenth inches. Two pi, plug in the radius. That gives me 4 pi centimeters. 4 pi is 12.6 for my two solutions. 2 pi r, that's 24 pi. 24 pi is equal to 75.4. With the diameter, I have to cut it in half. So I would have 2 pi times 4, then I times it by 2, which would turn it back into an 8 pi. 8 pi, I type that in, 25.1. 20.2, as you saw before, the diameter would just be in front, which would become 63.5. It's in inches. For the circumference. Now they want the length of the arc, so they want from here to here, they want that distance. So if I know that the distance of a full circle is 2 pi times the radius, I use the same formula, but I don't want the full circle. I only want 60 degrees out of 360. So I only want that piece out of the full circle. I'm going to calculate it so that it has a pi. 60, let's see, there we go. It's a little wobbly. There we go, let's try that. 60 divided by 360 times 2, and then we're going to leave the pi out. Now I want to have it as a fraction, so I'm going to do second fraction to decimal, enter. I want to make sure that it's not written like this. I want it as one fraction. So second fraction button, 8 over 3. So this would be 8 pi over 3 yards. That's my one answer. Then I'm going to enter it in. So I'm going to say 8 pi divided by 3 is 8.4 as a decimal. And those are your two solutions. On this one, I have 2 pi times the radius. This time I only want 45 degrees out of the 360. 45 divided by 360 times by 2 times by 12. $45 divided by 360 times by 2 times by 12 be 3 pi. I don't have to worry about a fraction because there's not a decimal. I enter in 3 pi. Enter. My decimal is 9.4. Okay. I have my radius, so I do 2 pi times 11. I only want 90 degrees out of the 360. 90 divided by 360 times 2 times 11 is 5.5. If you really want to, you could write 5.5 pi, but I'm going to write it as a decimal or as a fraction. So I do second, the PRB button, enter, second, the ABC, enter, 11 pi over 2. And then I'm going to enter that in. 11 pi divided by 2 is 17.3. On number 12, I have 90 degrees out of 360. 2 pi times the radius. I'm going to calculate it without the pi first. 90 divided by 360. So I leave the pi out, and I get 9 pi. I'm going to see what 9 pi is as a decimal. And there are my two solutions. Find the area. Area is pi r squared. So I'm going to enter that in. 7.7 squared. Then I do second, change it to a fraction. Second, ABC. Yikes, okay. So my fraction would be 5929 pi over 100. And then I'm going to write it as a decimal, so 5929 pi divided by 100 is 186.3 meters. So I have my two different forms of writing my answer. I still want the area. Pi r squared. 3 squared becomes 9 pi. 9 pi is 28.3. And I fill in, ooh, I forgot. Area would be yards squared. So those will be my two solutions. I'm going to fix my last answer. My meters, because it's area, needed to be squared. All right, 15 pi, my radius would be 5 squared. There's my first answer with pi. Now I'm going to calculate the decimal with pi, 78.5 meters squared. 16 pi 7 squared, that's 49 pi. 49 pi as a decimal is 153.9. Pi r squared, that would be 4 times 4 is 16 pi. 16 pi, enter, is 50.3. Pi r squared, that'd be 49 pi. We already did 49 pi right here. Diameter, I need to cut it in half. So I have pi r squared. That would be 121 pi. Calculate it to get the decimal. Inches squared. Cut this in half. I'd have pi times 18.8 cut in half is 9.4. I square that, enter. I get a decimal, so I need to change it f to d, so got my fraction. Now I do second ABC, and there's my fraction, and I put the pi on top. 2209 pi over 25. Now I enter it as a decimal, so to find a decimal, 2209 pi divided by 25 is 277.6 for the area of the circle. When they ask me to find the area of each sector, area is the pi r squared, right? Same thing, but they only want this area. So out of 360, they only want 105 degrees. I'm going to enter that in without the pi. 105 divided by 360 times 18 squared is 94.5. I'm going to change that to a fraction, ABC. 189 pi over 2. 189 pi divided by 2 is 296 point, rounds to a 9. Area is inches squared. I have to put a power on my measurement. So I have it written with pi, and then I enter it in with pi to find the decimal form. Pi r squared, 165 out of 360 degrees. I got a decimal, so I do second PRB, enter, second ABC, enter, 11 pi over 6 miles squared. And then if I wanted it as a decimal, enter it in and get 5.8. So I'll have my two solutions again. I do pi r squared, 60 degrees out of 360. 60 divided by 360 times 10 squared. Second PRB, enter. Second ABC, enter. 50 pi over 3. 50 pi divided by 3 as a decimal is 52.4, and the measurement would be feet squared. Pi r squared, 60 degrees out of 360. 60 out of 360, 11 squared. It's a decimal. I want to write it as a fraction. 121 pi over 6. The decimal form would be 63.4. Then we just have a review of finding area of a rectangle. So I would do 4 times 2 would be 8. So I would have miles squared for the area because it's shading it in. Or you could think of it as 4 miles times 2 miles. 4 times 2 is 8. Miles times miles is miles squared. 3 times 7 is 21 miles squared. On this one, I would have 7.2 times 4, but because it's a triangle, I only need half. So I would type in 0.5 times 7.2 times 4 is 14.4 meters squared. 1/2, 6.1 times 4.5, 0.5 times 6.1, 4.5, enter, 3.7 centimeters squared. And that is how you find circumference and area.